The Science of Flipping family, welcome back to another incredible podcast. I have a very long-time friend. We are usually the old guys in the room, so we know a thing or two. We call it wisdom. And a good friend of mine, he teaches all things how to flip land, how to deal with land. We all get land deals. How do we handle them? Joe McCall is here, everybody.
What's up, Justin? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So we were just talking off camera. So you had me on your podcast.
10 years ago and 1 week, it was episode 105. 10 years ago, man.
Are you still ripping and running on your podcast?
I've been doing it since 2011.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, and I thought I missed the boat when I started. I thought I was too late into the podcast game.
Our mutual friend Jason Hartman for sure
Yeah.
did. He should have kept going.
Well, he's still going.
He's going, but there was a phase where I think he broke his chain.
Really?
And he was like, that was a big mistake on my
Oh,
level.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so
Well, when I started the podcast, there was only 3 other real estate podcasts.
So Sean forced me to do it.
Yeah. I think that's how we met, was through Sean Terry. Is that
Through
right?
Sean. That would
Maybe Ken Clothier?
one or two of them, right?
Yeah.
So I started mine in 2013. You started in 2011?
Yeah, I think Sean started his in 2010.
Yep.
And at that time, there was maybe 2 or 3 other podcasts.
That's right. And Sean, because I was a big fix and flipper at the time, Sean was like, I teach wholesale. No one is podcasting about fix and flipping. Shocker, science of flipping, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Well, and he told me you should interview people.
Yeah.
And he said, there was a popular book at the time called Stock Market Wizards, maybe back 10 years earlier. But he said you should do something like Real Estate Wizards. And I thought, I don't like wizards. But how about Real Estate Investing Masters? And so that's when I chose Real Estate Investing Mastery as the name of my podcast. And I started interviewing people, which nobody was really doing at the time.
Right.
And then a couple of years later, John Lee Dumas comes in the scene. Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Yeah.
And he interviews people like every single day. And that just took off. And he sometimes takes credit for being the guy who started the interviewing trend, or, the idea of interviewing people for podcasts like that. But it was Sean Terry's idea. Gave it to me. Yeah.
Well, I would tell you, just because John Lee Dumas, my model, which you're familiar with, my podcast model, started because he gave me that idea. He was like, you have the leverage in the audience.
Yeah, he's a good
create a business out of your podcast versus just having a podcast.
Is he still doing it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, to my knowledge, I was on his maybe 2 years ago. So
okay.
I believe so.
Oh, good for him.
Well, for him, that's his revenue generating business is the podcast. And he was like, Colby, why don't you do that? And I'm like, okay. Anyways, let's talk land.
Cool.
So, most people think real estate transactions and in single family assets, especially in the transactional, right? The wholesaling, the flipping, they think single family homes mostly, right? You've been able to find an avenue that all of us, including myself, right, would like to understand more of.
Yeah.
What happens when you're direct mail, cold calling, buying leads, whatever the case may be, and you come across a piece of land? Maybe it's a subdivision or a infill lot, and then maybe it's acreage. We all come across them. What's the first thing you're thinking about, like, when you see land?
Well, I'm a simple guy, and I like to keep it small, keep it all. So
There we go.
when I build businesses, I don't want a lot of overhead. I don't want a lot of complexity. I like to keep things really, really simple. So I'd done a lot of wholesaling houses, and as we were talking about Ken Clothier, he taught me something once. He said, you need to stop selling what you have and start selling what people want. I thought that was interesting. And what do you mean by that?
That might have been the smartest thing he's ever said.
Maybe. Yeah. Not too many things, but that was one of them.
That's it.
No, I'm just kidding. But so I started thinking about that, and he at the time was teaching me, and I already done a lot of deals, but he was like, you need to start going to the buyers first. And he had a book, I think he's still out there, called Reverse Wholesaling.
Yep.
And so I read the book, and I had been wholesaling for 5 or 10 years already. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so simple, but so brilliant. And so, that was 13 years ago So ever since then, I've always been thinking about, where are the buyers? Where are they buying? So it's like, if you're a fisherman, where are the fish in the water? What are they biting? So I really started studying what the buyers are buying. So when I look at land, I don't care where in the country it is. I'm just looking for, where are the buyers buying land right now? So I don't suggest, if you're wholesaling houses in Miami or Des Moines, Iowa, I don't suggest adding land to your marketing in those markets, because how do you know if people are buying land there, right?
Right.
And so I look at the whole country and I look at, okay, well, and there's websites like landwatch.com is a good place to start. And you can narrow down, okay, well, these counties, there's a lot of activity. These states, there's a lot of activity.
Okay.
Florida's a big one right now. Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, believe it or not, a lot of people are buying land in southwest Missouri right now.
Okay.
And then you look at, okay, which counties are people buying land in? And I like going after cheap land, right? Because there's a bigger pool of buyers looking to buy cheap land.
Sure.
So, in Nebraska or Iowa, there's not a lot of cheap land being sold there. Why? Because it's mostly agricultural
That's
land.
right.
In Montana, it's beautiful, but there's not a lot of cheap land there, so there's not that many transactions there. I'd love to own land in Montana,
Yeah.
but that's not where the fish are biting. The same with, states like Vermont or, um, Idaho, beautiful states, but there's not a lot of land activity there. So I'm pretty agnostic. I don't want to go in my backyard. I want to go where the fish are biting, and I have the whole United States in my backyard. So I start with looking at what states are active with buyers, recent and current, and I'm looking to see where are the investors right now playing.
So where can someone right now go see that?
Landwatch.com.
Landwatch.
It's
Okay.
free. Landwatch.com, and that's it's owned by land.com. It's a family of websites. That's the number one website. It's like Zillow for houses,
Okay.
for
It's
land.
easy to see where buyers are buying or where transactions at least are happening. Okay.
And that gets you started. That gets you like, okay, I pick out like 2 or 3 states, and then you can dive in there and you can see which counties are the most active. I was just doing this yesterday in California, looking at California with one of my clients, and we were looking at San Bernardino County and Los Angeles County. Well, Los Angeles County is huge, right?
Mhm.
And you don't want, we like cheap land because there's a bigger pool of buyers.
Yeah.
Excuse me, in the buying cheap land. But if you look at Los Angeles County, for example, there's a lot of wealthy areas there,
Yep.
very expensive real estate. And then you go further out towards the hills, a lot of cheaper land out there. So then what we do is we look at, when we pick out our list of counties, maybe in each state, we get a list of 10 counties. What are the zip codes in each of those counties? So to dive into those kinds of details, I just go to Redfin and Zillow. So on LandWatch, I get a list of 2, 3, 4 states. And then in each of those states, I just write down the 10 or 20 counties. And LandWatch allows you to sort them. So you can sort them from most active to least active
Okay.
counties.
That's great.
And then in each of those counties, you just go to Redfin or Zillow and you say, show me the number of solds in the last 6 months of just land. Yeah. So land is one of the houses. There's houses, multifamilies, condos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just do land. And I like to look for cheap land. So I'll typically look for land under $100,000 or something like that.
Oh, really cheap. Yeah.
And because those are the fastest and easiest to sell.
Okay.
And now we've drilled it down from the entire country to states, to counties, to zip codes. And one of my favorite tools is FreedomSoft. And FreedomSoft has a tool in there called Zip Finder. And that just makes it a whole lot easier. You can go right there and find the top zip codes. And then when we find those top zip codes, sometimes in most of the counties in the U.S., Redfin allows you to download whatever you filter. So Redfin, Zillow doesn't. There's tools on Chrome where there are extensions where you can scrape what is in your filtered view in Zillow. But Redfin has a way where you can, if you scroll down to the bottom, you filter out, okay, last 6 months, land only, under $100,000. And you'll see at the bottom, usually a little button called Download All. And you download all of those transactions into a spreadsheet. Well, you can take that spreadsheet and you can either on your own or just upload it to ChatGPT and say, hey, what are the most popular zip codes in this area? What is the median acreage that people are buying? And what's the median sale price that they're buying them at? And what's the median price per acre? Now, I don't want to get too technical here, but there's a difference between average and median, right?
Yes, there is.
So median ignores the outliers because there's going to be properties that are selling for $1 million an acre. But so median takes that number right in the middle. And so now I know, okay, cool. These zip codes are the hot areas where a lot of buyers are buying. And now I'm looking at what Kent Clothier said, sell what buyers want, not what you have.
Yep.
And then I know, okay, well, they want properties in this, and this is recent. Somebody was just asking me, well, I've heard that in this area of Texas, land is really slowing down. Some land investors are getting out of the business. And And they were wondering why. And I was like, well, maybe it's not in a good area, right? So, and since I'm a wholesaling, I'm only going to areas where I'm going to be in and out of the deal really fast.
Yeah.
So now I know the top zip codes, I know what they're buying, and I know what they're paying for it.
Mm.
And with some simple tools, there's a lot of them out there where you can find buyers. I know who the buyers are.
Mhm.
And so 90% of my job is already done. Like
Right.
I know now what the buyers want, how much they're paying for it, where they're buying it, and who they are.
Yeah.
And I can then drill in with real simple. There's a lot of tools to do this. Freedom Soft again is my favorite. I can see which buyers have bought the most land in the last 6 months.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are out of state. These are guys, these people buying these lots, they're just investors like us. They're just wanting to diversify. A lot of times they're wanting to take their money out of the stock market, out of crypto, and put it into real estate. Or maybe it's an area where there's a lot of recreational activities going on. So it's cheap land. People are buying it to maybe build a house someday, or maybe just to there's no restrictions. So they want to put their RV out there and
Yeah.
just, shoot their guns, go hide their guns when the government comes to take them away. It just depends on who's in office.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't care. I don't care where, but I'm going to where the activity is. And then that's where I start doing my marketing.
This episode is brought to you by MotivatedSellers.com, America's leading pay-per-lead platform for real estate investors. Whether you're doing your first flip or your 500th deal, there's one thing you need more than anything else: motivated sellers that are exclusive to you. That's where we come in. At MotivatedSellers.com, we specialize in helping real estate investors connect with homeowners who are ready to sell fast all over the nation. Our platform is laser-focused on quality over quantity, using cutting-edge digital marketing and partnerships with the biggest tech and AI leaders to deliver exclusive leads in real time. Not shared, not recycled, not cold. No babysitting cold callers, no junk data clogging your CRM. Just motivated sellers directly in your inbox, phone, CRM, ready to make the deal. Over 2,000 active investors are already scaling their business with us. From newcomers to industry pros, our system is simple, scalable, and built for serious closers. Ready to stop chasing and start closing? Go to motivatedsellers.com to learn more about pricing, our amazing return policy, claim your territory, and get your first leads flowing today. motivatedsellers.com. So functionally, the transaction's the same.
Yeah, it's just like, so I used to do this with houses.
Yeah.
I'd go to ListSource, and there's a way in ListSource where you can, like, before you buy the list, you can say, all right, show me all the zip codes where the absentee owners are buying rental properties or buying properties right now. And it's really easy to find those pockets. And I just now am doing it for land instead of houses. Because I found, land is way easier. There's less competition.
I think the key for me is the less competition.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We're all, me, you, and however many other educators are teaching people how to transact in the single family space. The multifamily space can be tricky because there's less of them. So even though there's less people focusing on them because there's less of them anyways, it's still very crowded. People just don't know what you know about land. I feel like to some extent it's a blue ocean.
Well, it's crazy because I used to do a lot of direct mail for houses. I've always loved direct mail. It's how I did my first deal. And I'm lucky if in a market that I'm doing deals in, like I used to do wholesaling houses in maybe 4 different states. I was lucky if I got half of 1%
That's right.
response rate
Lucky.
on a letter, right?
Yeah.
Or a postcard. With land, we're averaging 3 to 5%
That's crazy.
response rate. Now, some competitive markets were maybe 2%, but it's still
Still.
4 times greater than
Right.
what I was getting with houses.
And you already know what the buyers are paying for, so it's such an easy conversation. What do you want for your land? They say X. You look at, okay, the median purchase price is this. Can't quite get there. Like you literally just reverse engineer it.
And this is so cool because sellers with houses, the owners of homes, they're more attached to the property, right? They've lived there for 20 years or they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it. And
Home ownership pride.
yeah. But with land, there's so much more removed. They're like, yeah, I just don't care anymore. And people ask me, why would somebody sell their land so cheap? Because we're buying it on average at about 40 cents on the dollar.
Mm.
And we sell it on average to a cash buyer at maybe 80 cents on the dollar.
Mm.
So, but people say, why would somebody sell their land so cheap? It's just, they just don't care about it anymore. It's like the same reason why I say somebody bought a treadmill for $2,500, and 2 or 3 years later, they sell it for $250 at the garage sale
That's
'cause
right.
they've never used it, and it's just collecting laundry, and they just wanna get rid of it. It's the same thing with land. Maybe they inherited it, they just don't want it anymore. I got so many stories of people that I've talked to that are just like, "I just need the cash," you know?
Yeah.
"We haven't been there in 7 years."
We don't do anything with it. It literally just sits there. It's
Mhm.
just like the money's not working.
So, I hate negotiating with sellers, right? I just never enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
can do it, I can get on the phone, but I just never liked it, and so with land, I started doing this where I would send out marketing, like postcards. The ugly remember the third notice postcards that we
Yeah.
used to do back in the day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I'm doing those now with land,
Okay.
and I'm getting huge response rates. But the postcard says, "Hey, we need to talk to you about your 2.6-acre lot in City County. I recorded a brief message. Just text or call this number, and I'll tell you all about it." Nobody will answer. 24-hour recorded voicemail. So it doesn't even tell them why, we're sending this postcard. And I have softened the language a little bit because it used to be really obnoxious. I won't get into the details, but I've softened the language a little bit on this postcard.
Sure.
And so I get a lot of calls. And at the time when I started doing this, I would just before they and they would there would be a reference number on the postcard. So they would leave a voicemail, and I would just send them an offer before even ever calling them or talking to them.
Mm.
I'd look at the property. I figure, all right, well, it's worth 10 grand. I'd send them an offer for 4. That was it. And I would get 1 out of 30 accepted, like clockwork. And they would sign it and send it back to me without me even talking to them. Sometimes they would call back and say, "Hey, I can't take 4, but could you do 5?" And I'd say, "Well, I don't know. Let me look at it." And maybe I would. Or sometimes they'd say, "I can't do 90 days," because I do 90 days to
Yeah.
close. "I can't do 90. Can you do 30?" Maybe, it depends. I don't have any inspection contingencies. I have 90 days to close and 90 days of due diligence, and I can cancel it for any reason.
I was just gonna say the big key for us in the real, single family home, we always have this inspection period,
Yeah,
but there's an asset, right? That makes sense. So there is no inspection. I mean, it's land. Like, what do you?
right. But my contract is contingent on due diligence.
Okay, that's it.
That's it. That's all I put on there. I don't do any earnest money deposits. Maybe you're supposed to, but I don't. And so as soon as I get it under contract, that's when I start doing my research, my due diligence. I call a bunch of realtors. I call other buyers to see if there's any interest, to see if I actually have a good deal. We send somebody to go take a picture of it, like drone footage. And then typically now we just close on it. We take it down, we buy it, and then we list it with a realtor and sell it. It used to be I just did assignments and maybe some double closes.
Yeah.
But now you make more money if you can take it down. And we're buying these things you can put them on a credit card.
Right.
You're buying them for
Yeah.
5 or 10 grand, and you're selling them for a $5 to $10,000 profit.
Love
Once
that.
in a while, we get a big $20,000 deal, but yeah.
So for someone getting into the space of land, limited funds or just getting going, you and I know the newer side, they don't tend to have a big marketing budget. Where would you tell them to spend their money or time? Where would you tell the newbie to go focus?
Yeah, 2 things. Cold calling works great.
Okay.
It's funny because
Same
land
process, you kind of reverse engineer it, and then you go find all the land, and then you just
you
smack them
download
out.
lists from the same resources you get lists for houses, right?
That's right.
You get the list, you skip trace it, and you could just start cold calling them. I would suggest starting with that. The second thing that I love is working with realtors. So we go find vacant lots that have been on the market for over 6 months, and there's tons of them. Why haven't they sold yet? They're just overpriced. And so I love to call, and I do this all the time on my YouTube channel. I'll call realtors live and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this property. It looks like a nice property. What's going on? Can I ask you some questions about it?" And most of the time they've forgotten all about it. Like, "Oh, well, oh yeah." So I said, "Looks like a nice property. How long has it been on the market?" And I know because "Oh, it looks like it's been 6 months. Man, is something wrong with it? What's going on? Why isn't this sold yet?" And 9 times out of 10, it's like, "Well, it's just overpriced." But I start to build a relationship with the realtor. I don't necessarily think I'm going to get that deal under contract, but I want to build a relationship with that realtor because I want them to know, number one, I don't have an agent representing me, so they can get both sides of the commission. And number two, if they ever bring me another vacant lot like this one, and they have a client who just wants an offer, a cash offer, I'll pay them 10% commissions.
Yeah.
And they're all of a sudden like, "Oh."
Well, and
They-
that's huge, right? That's so
Yeah.
different than residential real estate.
So, with tools like Redfin, I can show them, I can say, "Dang, this it's listed for 25, but I'm looking right now. Did you know there's like another property a mile away that's listed right now for 15?" So I don't know, like how negotiable is your client on their price? Like, and then I look at solds. It's really easy in Redfin to switch to solds. And I say, oh man, there's some solds here that sold 6 months ago, similar size for $5,000. So how negotiable is your client's not in a hurry to sell this thing, right? I mean, in a perfect world, I would need to be at around $5,000 to buy this thing. I know it's not going to work, is it? And usually the realtors, because about this time I've already told them, I want to pay you a bunch of money if you bring me deals.
Yeah.
And I live in St. Louis. They know I don't live in Florida.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, listen, just email me an offer and I'll send it to the client.
Right.
And so at that point, I'm getting their name and number. I'm getting their email address. And I'm saying, listen, if you ever find another property out, like an off-market vacant lot that I can buy at a good discount, I'll give you 10% commissions, which is big.
I tell my students all the time, it's about the realtor, not the listing.
Yeah.
And it's funny,
100%.
us old schoolers understand the relationship's more impactful than the actual listing itself.
Yeah.
As many of you know, I'm constantly on the move, juggling multiple businesses, traveling, and ensuring I get my morning workouts in. Staying fresh isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. But let's face it, after back-to-back meetings, juggling 2 kids at home, and the hustle and bustle of everyday life, body odor can become an issue. But here's the deal. Mando has revolutionized how I stay fresh. This isn't just another deodorant, it's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower alone with soap. My favorite scent, bourbon leather, it's fresh, is subtle, and doesn't clash with my cologne. And I was surprised by how well the solid stick works, even after an intense morning workout. Mando's starter pack is perfect for the new customer. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like a mini body wash or a deodorant wipe, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners and new customers, you get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code Colby at shopmando.com. That is shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from the head to the toe with Mando. So when talking to, whether it be listed with an agent or maybe you're talking to a homeowner, what type of questions are you asking? Because in our world, as you know, like we're talking about condition of the home, we're talking about the neighborhood. Is it owner-occupied neighborhood? Is it tenant-ridden neighborhood? That kind of stuff, right? So land can be different. Like what are the typical questions you want to ask a realtor or a homeowner in that case?
Yeah. The main one is access.
Okay.
Like, can you get to the property? Is it landlocked? Because sometimes if it's landlocked, I'll still make an offer, but it's going to be like $500 or $1,000 or something. Just really,
Do
really.
people buy landlocked land?
I've sold lots of landlocked land to neighbors, to other people that know how to get access, legal access to it.
Yeah.
There's some states that where you're required by law to have access to whatever land you own, but you have to go through a legal process to do it, and that may cost money. But
Sure.
so that's why, I many times when I'm making an offer on a landlocked property, I'll tell the seller, I'm not going to be the guy to buy this, but I might be able to find somebody else who will buy it.
Yeah.
So I need 3 to 6 months. So I'm honest with them. I'm telling them, I'm a wholesaler, and I'm going to try to find somebody else that will buy this from me. And if I do, then I close on it. But to answer the question, what are you looking for? Road access is the main one, right? Either actual road access or legal access, because sometimes there won't be a road, but it'll be plotted. You'll see the road. The other thing is wetlands and floodplains. Is it wetland or flood? Now, I have wholesale a lot of land that is 3 months out of the year underwater. And people still buy that land because it's close to, there's an area up northern Florida where there's a lot of spring-fed rivers.
Okay.
And people buy land up there just to bring their motor home and then go drive a half mile down to the river to go floating down the river with the alligators or something, right? So I don't know why people do that.
Sound enjoyable.
No, but people do it.
Yeah.
So, but they don't care. They're not going to build a house on there. So anyway, access, floodplain, wetlands. The other one is like the terrain, the slope. Is it super steep? Is it pretty flat? So that's important to know. And all these things aren't deal killers. But like, it's crazy. There's a saying in land, there's a pig for every barn. Because you may think, who would on earth would want to buy this property?
Yeah.
But, a neighbor might. I've heard stories of where, like, somebody bought they got a property under contract, not realizing it was on the side of a mountain.
Sheesh.
But they sold it like that to a bunch of rock climbers that wanted their own property where they could go rock climbing,
Wow.
mountain climbing up the side of this mountain.
So in our world in real estate, I try to always help people understand, don't prejudge your buyer. So the deal that you think isn't a deal, a lot of times there's one call that will come into that they're going to say, I want it. So I'll give you a perfect example. My world, you're familiar with it, but a property in a great neighborhood, but it seems like it's a little overpriced. Like there's not a big margin to it, but it needs updating. In our world, the male formula won't work for that. It seems like you're going to be paying too much. But you go and say, you know what, I don't want to prejudge a buyer who might remodel the home themselves.
Yeah.
There's a buyer out there that can't get a property in this hot neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's undervalued for the neighborhood, and they'll do the work.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times. I'm sure you've done the same thing in the residential space. Like you find one buyer, you have one call, you sell the one call, and you make a money because you're not prejudging your buyer. Same thing with land is what you're saying is like you have cliff climbers that want this land because now they have their private access to these rocks and whatever. Don't prejudge the buyer, and kind of what you learned from Kent, which is like, don't sell what you have, sell what they want.
Yeah.
I think that's a major thread of information people need to understand, both in land and in real estate.
Well, it makes everything so much easier.
Right.
Because they're buying land out here. And anything will sell at the right price.
Yeah.
You can sell anything at the right price. And so that's the cool thing about land, because there's not so much competition. There's not a bunch of other YouTube University wholesalers chasing these few owners, homeowners here.
Let me plug you real quick. Go to Joe's YouTube, by the way. Go to anything he has, because if you want to get more information on this, you need to go follow Joe. This is why he is here. So what's Instagram, YouTube? Let me plug you so people know where to find you.
Well, just go and search for Joe McCall.
Okay. Joe McCall, MCCALL.
Yes, thanks.
Yes. Okay, so I have a question regarding that. What about infrastructure? Like, do you care really? Obviously, a cliff-ridden thing doesn't have any infrastructure. There's no...
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't. Sometimes you can go too deep into analyzing a property. And here's again why I do 90 days, because I let the mark. Sometimes, land is harder to comp than houses.
Sure.
Because there's fewer of it, and you can't filter by square foot or number of beds or when it was built or whatever. But with land, you just got to take your best guess sometimes. So it never takes me longer than 5 minutes to analyze a property. And I'm always conservative. And I'm like, all right, well, conservatively, I think I could sell it for this in 1 or 2 months. I want to be in and out real quick. And then I subtract my numbers, and I never offer more than 50% of what I think I can sell it quickly for.
That's right.
In 1 or 2 months.
And in speed, for sake of speed, remind everyone, I bring you 123 Main Street, or the address. What's the fastest way for them to find that value again? Redfin?
Redfin and Zillow.
Zillow. And just go look for like-kind land properties in a general area?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I've got a bunch of YouTube videos that teach that. I also just, in the last week, you've heard of Manus, IM. It's you've heard of agentic AI?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where you use AI as like an agent to do stuff for you. Manus.im, MANUS.im, is one of those agentic AI tools.
Yeah.
I started geeking out over it one night, and I had it build a Chrome extension for me for Zillow. So you go to Zillow and you search for your property, right? And you get it in the center of that map, and you set your filters for land and solds in the last 12 months and between 1 and 5 acres or whatever. And you zoom out until you get like 20 comps, and you click my extension. It'll scrape all of the comps, and you do that for solds and actives and pendings, right? And it'll scrape all of these and then give you a median price, an average price per acre, a median price per acre, and all of that. And then you can say, all right, only show me the lowest 50%. And it filters out and shows you the lowest 50%. And then you say, all right, so based on, and you'll see a median price per acre for actives and a median price per acre for solds, right? And so I just choose the lower of the two.
Yep.
And then it calculates if my property is 2 acres, it tells me what that property might be worth. And then I subtract all my profit, 10 grand profit, $2,500 in closing costs, $1,000 for unknown, and $500 for photos. And it gives me a number to offer, and it tells me if that number is more or less than 50%.
Hmm.
And then so it's cool. I don't know anything about code, nothing. And I started with, hey, this is what I want to do. And I was typing this to Manus. How do I do it? And at first it said, well, that's against Zillow's terms and conditions. You can't just go and scrape stuff off their website. I said, well, but is there another way to do it? And then it said, well, yeah, you could create a Chrome extension. You know what a Chrome extension is, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, how do I do that? And it walked me through, and like 57 versions later, I got this thing that's actually works, and you can export it into a spreadsheet, and it's really cool. I'm going to be using it as like pretty soon on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be showing how to use it and giving it away for free.
Yeah.
So I use tools like that
Yep.
when I'm evaluating properties. So I put in the address or an address of a similar property nearby. I get it in the center of my Zillow map, and then I set my parameters, and I zoom in or zoom out until I get 10 or 20 comps.
Yeah.
And then I just look at price per acres. So they're going to be properties all different sizes. And I get like an average or a median price per acre. And that's how I determine the value of my property. See, the reason why I love this is because I wanted something I could do with my teenager boys. I got 4 kids. Right now, my oldest are 21 and 20. And then I have girls that are 17, and 14. But my boys, when they were 14 and 15 years old, they wanted some extra money to get a car.
Yeah.
And we were traveling a lot at the time, so they couldn't get jobs. Like, we were traveling to Europe for months at a time and whatever. So I said, well, let's do land together. And this is really one of the main reasons why I got into land, because I wanted to do something with my boys. And my boys at the time, they're good kids. They're smart. But, I didn't want to train a 14-year-old kid how to talk to some 80-year-old lady who has been living in this house for 30 years and try to get them to understand how to estimate repairs and the ARV of a property, and then to learn how to negotiate with sellers, and I just said, let's figure out a way to do this where it's like just transactional. It's just like systems and automation.
Yeah.
So that's when I developed a system of, let's find out where the buyers are. Let's send them postcards. Let's send them to a voicemail. So my boys started listening to the voicemails. A couple times a week would listen to the voicemails. And then they would go to Zillow to find all of these comps, and I gave them a spreadsheet, and they would figure out what the property is worth. And without my supervision, eventually, they would just send offers. They would send the offers themselves to the sellers, and we get 1 out of 30, 1 out of 40 accepted. And with my boys, because I was doing deals on my own as well at the time, they did over $151,000 in profits.
Wow.
On these deals.
That's
I only paid them 15% profit, right? But they both were able, not nice cars, but they were able to get, good 10-year-old.
No 16-year-old deserves
No, not at all.
I don't care how rich you are. They don't deserve it.
Yeah. So it's so easy. My
15-year-old,
it's good.
Now that's great. And so the thing that I want everyone to really hear is you take genuinely, if you're just doing Redfin, less than 5 minutes comping a property.
Yeah.
And you just do like kind acreage, and you zoom out until you have 20 comps or so.
Yeah.
You say, okay, this is what we're selling at, and you take the bottom third and say, okay, I need to be closer to this bottom third.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the simplicity. I mean, man, you're making me really want to get in the land. Just because it is simple. So I have a kind of interesting question. I have a really good friend that does a lot of mineral rights and oil rights in Texas.
And timber probably too.
And he crushes it.
Yeah.
So if you come across that, or when you come across that, how do you handle it?
I don't, because I like to keep things simple.
Yeah.
So what I do though is I find the guys that are doing those.
Sure.
And I bring the deal to them. I say, hey, I got a deal here. Do you want to partner on it?
So if you had a deal in Texas, you would call my buddy, which I'm happy to actually make this introduction. He is a student of mine. And he has a whole mineral and oil company.
That's complicated.
It is.
But that's why he's killing it, because it's intimidating to everybody else like me.
That's right.
So we're just bringing our deals to him.
And what's interesting is he reverse engineered this company. He said he came to me because he was like, I already have the baseline mineral and oil company.
Yeah.
I need more access to more land and opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And so let me hire you as a coach so I can get into the real estate side of it. And so now he's crushing it because he runs this wholesaling transactional, and anything he comes across that has this, right? And so he's like, dude, it's a feeder funnel
Yeah.
to the bigger business, which is the mineral and oil rights.
So
So
let's talk offline. I'd
yeah,
have to
for
get his
sure.
agreement number. But so that happens all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
you come across every area has kind of these things that are unique to it. But I join as many different real estate investing Facebook groups as I can. Like every market has their own little Florida, South Florida real estate investors, whatever, right?
Right.
So I'll join all of those that I can. And there's also a lot of local buy sell trades groups, Facebook groups in areas by county or by city. And so a lot of times I'll put something on those Facebook groups. Hey, I got this 5-acre lot. Has anybody ever done a deal in this area
Yeah.
before? And you'll find people there that are doing deals in that area.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, I say, hey, listen, I don't have time to mess with this. Do you want to partner with me on it? I already got it under contract.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll do some kind of a JV agreement with them on the side.
Sure.
Um,
So even if you guys make 10 grand, you give them 5, it's same as everything. And it just reduces your friction. You don't have to work
Yeah.
as hard. You give away half, but who cares? So the other thing I'm thinking about is I'm literally contemplating how I put this into my business. Acreage.
mhm.
Do you care? Right. So I have a student that does land entitlement. So he wants, when he goes after land, he wants certain acreage. Like he doesn't want to have a 2-acre
Yeah.
thing, right? He wants 20 plus. That's his model. Do you care? Do you try to do
There's
it?
a really cool tool called the Land Portal.
Okay.
And there's some other tools that do this. But the Apke brothers, I've met them once or twice, really nice guys. They have a tool called Land Portal. And the cool thing about that tool is you can go into a county. If you want to do entitlements or subdivide, you have to have a certain minimum road frontage
Yep.
to do that with white, right? So you can have 1 or 2 entrances, So what they do with they've used AI to, instead of just trusting the categorization from the county that this is vacant land, they use AI to look at the satellite image
Mm.
and to see if there's a structure on it or not.
Yep.
And then that will tell it it's a vacant lot, right? And then you can say, only give me properties that have road access, that have at least 100 feet of road access, that is 10 acres, 20 acres or bigger, that is no more than 25% wetland, that has at least 85% of the property below a certain slope,
Yeah.
percentage slope. And so it's pretty crazy. You could really narrow down.
And you don't really target anything like that. You just kind of go simple is better, more is better.
Yeah, yeah. So like I
Infill or acreage, you just kind of go
well,
after.
yeah, so that's important to really think about that though, because if I'm targeting Charlotte or Lee County in Florida, for example, right? Because I see there's a ton of activity there. I just go to Redfin and I say, well, what are the people buying?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I talked about you download that list, and you can see most people are buying 1/4-acre little infill lots.
Infill. Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to target.
Yep.
People who own 1/4-acre infill lots. I'm just going to say, give me all of the landowners that have owned it for over 10 years between this acreage size and this acreage size and don't live in the area. So I can say out of zip code. And that's the only filtering that I do.
So easy.
I get as many as I can, and I just mail 500, 1,000 postcards a week.
Yeah. Or calling.
Or call.
So the other thing I was thinking about, so when I was doing a lot of infill lots in Phoenix, we were getting like our buyer typically was either a spec home builder of some sort. And so they would usually buy it around anywhere from 10%
Yep.
or 25% of value of finished
Yeah,
product,
yeah.
right? Is that still
Still the
essentially
same.
10 to 25% of value of finished
Mhm.
product? So if the home's 500 grand, they're willing to buy the land for give or take 100 grand.
No more than, between 50 to 100 grand.
Yeah.
And it's the
Okay.
same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so when I get a deal under contract or when I'm making an offer, I kind of look to see, all right, well, what are similar transactions in the last 6 months? What are they selling for?
Yep.
And when I get under contract, the first thing I do is I call at least 10 or 20 realtors
Mm.
that have sold land there before recently, and realtors who have new home construction builds.
Yeah.
And I ask them, I say, is your client who built this house, are they looking for more land?
That's right.
And I love working with realtors. They just
Yeah,
make
yeah.
your job so much easier.
Tell
And
the newbies that it's okay.
I
to
don't know.
work with
I used to be
realtors.
afraid of working with realtors.
Yeah.
But they're amazing. And with all of these new wholesaling regulations coming around, right? It's getting harder. It's illegal, immoral, and fattening to wholesale anymore. So just take the deal down, work with realtors, and have them do the work of selling for you.
All right. So you have a challenge you do. regarding, because there's a lot of content, there's a lot of questions that I wasn't able to ask right here on this episode. And if someone wants to know more, they can do your challenge, flipdirtchallenge.com, correct?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, every week we run this challenge.
Okay.
And I dive deep. So I talked a lot of like technical stuff here,
Yeah.
but I show how to do it. And I show how to do it with free tools,
Yeah.
premium paid tools. I show free marketing and cheap marketing. You know, that Chrome extension thing I talked about, I give it away in the challenge.
That's great.
So it's fun. We go in and we just teach you how to pick a market, how to do marketing, how to make offers, how to find the buyers. And it blows people away how simple it really is. And I love doing it.
Yeah. So if you don't get everything you want from this episode, go to flipdirtchallenge.com, take Joe's challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, thank you very much for showing up. This was incredible.
Appreciate it, Justin. Thank you.
All right. So if this is pretty cool and you think there's a couple people that want to be able to flip some dirt, then I would tell you to share this episode with at least 2 of your friends who think this is a pretty cool episode. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.